What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass Christian Shad. What's going on, fellas?
What's good, man? What's good?
Another week 3 or week 2. We just got finished with officially into week 3 of the NFL season. Through 2 weeks, it's been a lot of crazy endings to games. Obviously, we just saw the Dallas and New York Giants football game that happened. Obviously during week 1 we had the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills as well. Already had a Super Bowl rematch, but on top of all the crazy games, we've now had, it seems like half the teams, but it's not necessarily that many. Almost 10 teams in total that have had some type of quarterback injury of some sorts, and about 5 teams this week that have quarterbacks missing, and completely starting with Joe Burrow. So before we get into the games, obviously I think that's one of the biggest pieces of news that's happened over the past couple days, definitely over the weekend with Joe Burrow officially. We don't have to play around with it and mince words here. He's out for the season.
He's out for the season.
He's not out for a minimum,
He's
minimum
out for
of
the
3 months.
season.
I know they're trying to be optimistic and stuff like that when you have a star player, but Joe Burrow is officially out for the rest of this NFL season. Obviously, it was something that we were all kind of watching live and, speculating that it could be something minor initially. And then when we saw him get off the field or walk off the field or walk to the locker room, concerns started to be raised. But, how do you guys feel about the news, and what do you think the Bengals should kind of do moving forward?
No, you got it.
It's tough when you really think about it. It's funny that once we find out what the injury was, a lot of people were like, "If this was the injury, why I got that man walking? Where the cart at?" Or what have you, which is crazy. But I mean, it's tough for him. I mean, this is another season-ending injury for him. He's been injured very often. Every year it seems like he gets injured, and now it's becoming a serious thing with him. And where do you go as far as this Bengals are? Because I mean, the offense is the engine of this team. As you can tell, it's the offense. Defense, they've been okay this year, but they're still not up to par in general. So, you might have won this game, but I mean, what is the outlook of the team going forward? Like, you invested in money in the offense until quarterback, and he just seemed to get hurt. I mean, it's unfortunate, but he got that injury prone label on him now.
It is very tough, man. I mean, for a quarterback that's been in the league since 2020 to be out, to have season-ending injuries, to have your years playing, it's a bad look. I know you got a contract last season and whatnot, but I mean, it's hard to shake that stigma at this point. You have 3 different season-ending injuries to three different parts of your body. We saw, you were injured going into last season. You end up playing every game that season, but then this off season, you wanted to play some preseason games. You wanted to get out there. And then in the preseason, you back there running for your life, doing some crazy shit that is unnecessary. And then boom, 2 games to the season, you get a turf toe injury. It's very tough, man. You know how I feel about Joe Burrow. But at the same time, you can't put too much stock into it. You can't really trust him too much. Because even when you're not injured, we saw last season, how far is that team really going? Like, I understand you came on strong. First full season you made to the Super Bowl. Kudos to you. At the same time, ever since then, it's been like, yeah, you can't trust it. It's either you injured or your team is just not good enough. I don't know where you go from here if you're Cincinnati, man. I'm at a loss. I mean, because you can't. I mean, you're expecting him to come back and be fully healthy next season, but at the same time, how are you building this roster next season as well? You still have a lot of work to do. A lot of questions in Cincinnati.
Yeah, definitely a lot of questions in Cincinnati. And, when you do, I mean, half the seasons that you've been in the league, you've ended with season-ending injuries. On top of the play style, as great as Joe Burrow is, he's not. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, so and it shouldn't really be disrespectful at all, but you never know how people take things. But he's not necessarily in the even though people kind of compare him to quarterbacks of the older days, like your Peytons, your Tom Brady's, your Phillip Rivers, the pocket guys and whatnot. one thing, and we've heard Tom Brady kind of give his different spiels about how he feels the level of quarterbacking isn't necessarily where it was during his time. And I don't think he's necessarily saying that specifically just talking about him. I think he really truly means it just in general. But Joe Burrow, I would say, is not necessarily on the level of Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, where even though he's a pocket passer and he is a little bit more mobile, he doesn't necessarily he's not necessarily giving himself up. He's always fighting to try to, make the same plays that Josh Allen and Lamar, similar plays, maybe not, let's not say the same. But as a Colts fan, I vividly remember plenty of times where instead of running around trying to escape the sack, Peyton Manning immediately just drops. And
yeah.
I understand that there's a level of you are giving up on a play, but Peyton Manning was known as the Iron Man. Eli Manning was known as the Iron Man. Obviously, Tom Brady played till he was, 70. And there is a level of I understand that there's some people have talked about the Bengals itself. The Bengals as an organization, the resources that they've added to the offensive line, the talent level that they've had on the offensive line comparatively to other teams. Obviously, you guys have probably seen the stats just as about everybody probably at this point. The Bengals, run blocking win rate, their pass blocking win rate is always at the bottom of the league. But part of that is also, if we're going to say that sacks are a QB stat, which it is, eventually Joe Burrow, there is a level of, look, everything can't be from the shotgun. Look, you can't be fighting for every single thing, because number one, you are injury prone. You do have to sometimes take your losses when you do. You do have to sometimes get some short routes as opposed to always trying to get the longer developing, intermediate to deep routes as well. So, there are some things that it goes hand in hand with both sides. There's some culpability with Joe Burrow. There's definitely some with the Bengals as well. But it's a tough situation. I made the comment to you guys in our own group chat in terms of it might need to be time for the Bengals to start being in the quarterback market. And I truly believe that, not because Joe Burrow is not capable, or he's top quarterback in the league, but if every season we're not making the playoffs when you're healthy, and then on top of that, you're being hurt every other season, like, we probably should start looking to see what we could possibly get for you and start looking elsewhere in terms of rebuilding this team. And I also think that doesn't just end with Joe Burrow, that it first probably starts with T. Higgins. Obviously, he just signed his contract this offseason, but things get very interesting as the season goes on. If the Bengals are not 2-0, it's one thing when you get hurt in the middle of the season, but it's the beginning of the season. It's week 3. They could go from 2-0 to 2-6 very quickly. And what is that trade deadline? Trey Hendrickson. I don't know between the two of them exactly, because they are just now getting their contracts, what the trades look like for them in terms of, the money and stuff like that. But those are guys that you have to start having conversations about, as well as, maybe small conversations about Joe Burrow as well. Because if you do end up with the number 1 overall draft pick this year, what's to say you shouldn't go after a quarterback if you do fall in love with one? Trade Joe Burrow to, whomever, the Saints, I don't know, Indianapolis, the Giants, I don't know, these teams that have been looking for a quarterback, and saying like, hey, you guys have to worry about that. Even though he's great, we can't rely on him. So I think there's a lot of tough conversations that are being had in Cincinnati right now. Definitely think that they need to probably start looking at a different coach as well. Not to say that Zach Taylor is a bad coach by any means, but you've also got my quarterback. You're supposed to be an offensive guy, and you got my quarterback hurt 3 years in a row. So like I said, it's top to bottom, where it's, organization, head coach, quarterback, that are all kind of in this bubble where it falls on all of them. And I know a lot of people don't want to necessarily admit that because of how good Joe Burrow has been, but it's on all of them, and it's a tough situation. It's truly tough, especially given the fact that you just signed 3 guys to big time contracts this offseason. So,
I mean, what's more interesting about that, and I don't think that I hope it doesn't get to the point where you trading him and stuff like that. But you did see the report that came out last week about the Baltimore Ravens possibly picking Shador in this past draft. Why? You look at that and you'd be like, okay, we all know that DaCosta, like that he's one of the best when it comes to drafting, period, right? When it comes to team building. Why would he do that? Because even though you have a 2-time MVP, should be 3, you want to have some insurance just in case. You want to have a young guy coming up because Lamar is, 28 now? Joe Burrow is going to be 29 in a couple of months. You want to have that insurance just in case. So you're going to look at the draft and see if you do fall in love with somebody, if you think, okay, I can kind of snag him in the 4th or 5th round. I think that would be pretty nice just to develop. They haven't done that, and I think they should look into it. If the Baltimore Ravens could think about doing it, and I think they, I'm assuming that report was true, then why wouldn't the Bengals explore it at the same time? Like, you still got Joe Burrow. Yes, I understand that. You still got to have some insurance because he showed you, just like Lamar showed you, he doesn't finish every season. It is what it is with the play style that he has. And Joe Burrow just being injury prone, he doesn't finish every season. You got to, at some point, you got to account for that. And you can't be just stuck in the mud every other season. Like, that's bad team building at that point. And you set yourself up for failure. So it is tough. I don't think they like Browning as much as they say they do.
Hey, maybe we will see. I will say that if they didn't, I will say that they probably would have tried a little harder than Desmond Ridder to bring in for quarterbacks. But I mean, obviously that also depends on how the next couple of weeks look as well. But I also think it's one thing I do want to make note of. 2 things really. The Shador conversation about that, like, please shut the fuck up. Like, stop acting like people don't have conversations with agents. For all you media folks that are trying to be like, Shador looks bad by this, like, please stop acting like people aren't having conversations in the 5th, 6th, 7th, maybe even the 4th, bottom of the 4th round, where they're lobbying for their guys to either get picked or go undrafted. Like, please, like, stop. That's number 1. Number 2, stop comparing him to Andrew Luck. Stop comparing Joe Burrow to Andrew Luck. It's not the same situation, and it's not fair to Joe Burrow in terms of comparing him to Andrew Luck, because Andrew Luck's issue was not that it's weird saying this. It wasn't that he kept getting hurt. It was the fact that it was the rehab and how his injuries during the rehab, they were compounding on each other, and he wasn't able to get back, right? Like, in the time frames that he was expected, on top of the pressures that the Colts or maybe whomever else were putting on him in terms of rushing to get back. And I'm not, that was Andrew Luck being a guy that was conscious of his health and, his future health and what he wanted in life. I'm not saying that, stop putting that stigma on Joe Burrow, because I'm not saying that that's anything wrong with what Andrew did. But let's not also say that Joe Burrow is that same type of person where, not to say that he's not conscious about his health in the future or what his life looks like in the future, but, we don't know if it's mentally a draw on him like it was Andrew Luck. And I don't think that that's fair to keep putting him in that category or saying that about him, or even using Andrew Luck for the little, the guinea pig or the example that they want to use for every single person that retires early or could possibly retire early. Because also Andrew Luck, there was rumors that he was going to retire a couple years prior to when he actually did. So that was also like a part of that. Like, so, let's get that whole story right there too. So let's stop. I feel like that's very unfair to Joe Burrow in terms of, I don't want to say his competitive nature, because I don't want to make it seem like Andrew Luck is not competitive or he quit or anything like that, like some people, have tried to hint at and stuff like that. But I don't think that it's fair to Joe Burrow to kind of pigeonhole him to that. So I didn't want to make that.
Nobody has the same mental. So yeah, exactly. You're right. Nobody has the same mental makeup.
And I understand it's
everybody's different.
And they got to do what they got to do in terms of the comparisons and stuff like that.
They got to make the graphics. They got to make the graphics with the sacks. What it was with the sacks and quarterback hits and all of that.
And I would honestly, and a lot of Andrew Luck has admitted himself, like, a lot of that stuff wasn't just, even though people wanted to come at the Colts for maybe not having the best offensive lines, some of that was him. Like, Yeah, I was trying to be the fucking linebacker or running through somebody. I was holding the ball a little bit longer than I probably should have, and trying to go for big plays as opposed to just getting, keeping the offense on track, keeping them above the sticks and stuff like that. As you saw, he didn't take as many hits as last year because Frank Reich came in and was like, "Nah, we're not doing all this." I mean, obviously he had a shoulder injury that he probably had to compensate for a little bit, especially at the beginning of the year. But it's a little different. So like, let's just cut the comparisons there. Like, cut the comparisons. Like let's stop trying to put Joe Burrow's career on the back burner already. Like he's hurt. Let him work through it. We'll see what it looks like. But I do think that maybe his career in Cincinnati should probably be put on the back burner. And Cincinnati as a whole, just historically wise, I mean, they've had a lot of tough hits when it comes to quarterbacks and quarterback injuries because Carson Palmer had his injuries before he decided to say fuck Cincinnati. Boomer Esiason way back when. Andy Dalton necessarily did not have the quarterback injuries, but you did have big time injuries with AJ Green, who was kind of your stalwart during that point in time. So I mean, they've kind of taken a little bit of a little bit of hits in history, but I mean, when we talk about football gods, I mean, I guess that kind of happens when you want to be a cheap organization as well. With that being said, we can go ahead and get into the recap of week 2. As mentioned, we had a couple crazy games, a couple crazy endings. Between definitely in the early slate between Dallas and the Giants. Second half of the day on Sunday, we obviously had the Colts and Broncos come to a crazy ending. The Cardinals and Panthers almost ended. Well, it was a bit of a good comeback by the Panthers, but ultimately that last drive was,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
obviously we ended yesterday with a Monday night doubleheader between a huge comeback, a huge late drive by Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucks against the Houston Texans, and then ultimately the Las Vegas Raiders coming up short with Geno having not the best game against a great defense. But what was you guys' biggest takeaway going from week 1 to week 2 and how the games kind of played out?
Shout out Baker, man. What a game by him on Monday. Being able to come back. Their teams sustained some injuries during the game, but being able to just fight back and keep your team within it, and to have a game winning drive like that. I mean, take it literally down to 6 seconds like that. That is a true definition of coming in the clutch, being able to just take your team all the way down. Even with he made a 4th down run, had to get what, it was 10 yards if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, being able to take off and make that crucial 4th down conversion, and then like I said, just drop all the way down there and make the game winning touchdown. I mean, shout out to him. We were just talking about quarterbacks earlier, and I mean, he was on a team that he's a quarterback, but I mean, you can't really say whether or not how good of a team Cleveland would have been, because they still have other issues going on. But I mean, shout out Baker. So that was one of the biggest games for me.
Yeah. And sticking with that real quick though, since we are talking about these quarterback injuries, at a certain point, I understand that you're fighting for yards. I understand that the heat of the battle, you trying to make a play, but these guys are giving themselves up, or not giving themselves up enough. You saw Baker last night or Monday night when he, even on that run where he was going 4th and 10, bro, you know exactly what a first down is. Get down. Because then he grabbed his knee a couple of times that game from just getting tackled. You don't have to get tackled like that. Get down. You have your yardage. Get down. Same thing happened with JJ McCarthy. That's why he's out. Like, I know he was trying to get that first down on a 3rd and 18 or whatever it was. Bro, you're too important for your team. Justin Fields, concussion. Why? It ain't from sitting in the pocket, obviously. Who else got injured? Jaden Daniels. Same thing. Could protect yourself, please, because then you putting your teams in a bad spot, and that's kind of been the story of this weekend. Like you said, to open up this pod, Shy, it's like these quarterbacks, the injuries are getting ridiculous. Even the ones like even you see Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love sitting there trying to truck people. I get it. At the same time, it's not necessary, in my opinion, at all for how important you are to
Jordan
the
Love's
team.
was necessary.
But I'll leave that there.
Jordan Love's was necessary. He was going for a first down. The rest of them, I definitely
I understand that. But as far as games go, man, and I haven't talked about them much on the pod, as far as like actual like how they played, but the rookies for Atlanta and the game that happened on Sunday Night Football. What a great showing, man. I don't know the last time I seen a rookie group like that. You have 4 rookies make some significant plays all in one game, all in the second game of the season at that, on their first primetime game, where you come away with a sack for JP or half a sack for Jalen Walker, 2 interceptions from Billy Bowman and Xavier Watts. I mean, that's a hell of a performance from a rookie class. Let's just be honest. I've never seen nothing like that personally, or at least I can't remember. And I understand that, it was against JJ, but it's also against Kevin O'Connell on that offense. And we gave Kevin O'Connell a lot of kudos last week for how he was able to lead that team offensively down the stretch. So I mean, Kevin O'Connell is still Kevin O'Connell. So I think it's still a big deal. So I think the Falcons coming out and getting that big dub on the road in that environment on Sunday Night Football was a huge game, and how they did it.
Yeah. We can get into that another time, but I will say that obviously we did give Kevin O'Connell a lot of kudos, but I'm just gonna say I rewatching the film on that one. We might JJ, you might need a little bit more time there, but they absolutely did have a fantastic showing in terms of all the rookies stepping up, and obviously in. Billy Bowman almost had another interception. He played around and acted like he picked it off, but it was still a phenomenal play by him in terms of extending his arm out, almost getting a one-hander. So definitely a phenomenal showing on Sunday Night Football. I mean, you can't ask for anything more from your rookies there. And on the other side, you do have to obviously JJ, and I think in a sense, you could kind of expect a little bit coming off of a Monday night game where they had the comeback that they did, having his child or whatever the case may be. But there is no excuse for continuing to. Well, there's a bit of excuse because he is coming. It's technically his rookie season, but Kevin O'Connell, in that same breath, I do think could have helped him out a little bit more with some less longer developing plays. But that is his offense, so you kind of
that is true, yeah.
You kind of it's little give and take there. But JJ McCarthy, hot seat watch might be coming soon for you, But on the other front, one team that I did say at the beginning of the season that I did not believe in. I think even though it's only 2 weeks into the season thus far, I think you have to kind of give kudos to the Rams. I don't know how good the Texans are. So maybe that game last week, should be kind of taken with a grain of salt. But I do think that they have been playing excellent, both offensively and defensively thus far. Even though it was against Tennessee, and I don't know what Houston's going to be, but even though it was against those teams, they still have been. Matthew Stafford has been playing as well as you could possibly play, especially for somebody coming off of basically not doing anything the entire off season. And then on getting off the Rams for a little bit, I think that you also got to kind of give kudos to Russell Wilson. Last week we were talking about this could possibly be, I was definitely in my head thinking like, yeah, this could possibly be Russell Wilson's last game, as a starter, because eventually, like, what the hell? When are people just going to be like, all right, we're not going to keep putting this guy in trench as our starter? Coming out with 450 yards passing, a career high at 37 years old, in a game that was a loss, but, we saw a lot of the same, the things that I think people kind of expected from that offense in terms of him getting the ball out deep, throwing those shots to Malik Neighbors, Obviously, he made some other clutch plays throughout that game, especially obviously in the fourth quarter. I won't say throughout the game because it really kind of kicked off in the fourth quarter and overtime. But shout out to Russell Wilson for kind of stepping up there
That
in a
fourth quarter was
loss.
crazy.
Yeah. And then shout out to Brandon Aubrey as well. You know, I think it says something when you have a kicker that lines up for a 64-yarder game winner, and there's not a single soul watching that was like, he's gonna miss. Everybody watching that motherfucker was like, yeah, he's hitting that. So I think it says something about
Well, crazy, especially like how you seen kickers around the league.
Yeah. So definitely shout out to them. Definitely just some good games all around, and some good showings. I would also say from the second year quarterbacks just in general. Michael Penix obviously had the first week of the season where he played well. JJ McCarthy, same thing, played all right, then had a great fourth quarter. Caleb Williams, but the rest of you guys, Drake May was excellent week 2. Excellent week 2. Might have been one of the best quarterbacks of the week. And then Jaden Daniels, obviously last year more so than this year. I think that we've seen some decent stuff from all of those quarterbacks. Which
Spencer Rattler too. Let's not look. I know.
And Spencer Rattler
going into this season, nobody thought that. Yeah.
Spencer Rattler as well. Obviously, continuing to be accurate, and I mean, not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but you do kind of have to start. At some point, we're going to have to start questioning what the Saints are going to do with Tyler Shuck. So, not that it's necessarily a bad thing for them, but there's still a conversation that probably needs to be had. So, definitely just think that, we've gotten some decent quarterback play all around from the year 2 guys. And we'll kind of see how they progress moving forward. But with that being said, obviously we got to talk about the biggest game of the week, which was the Super Bowl rematch. And, I think obviously we all thought that the Eagles were gonna win the game, but they won the game in close fashion. There's been a lot of conversation about the tush push again, which, I mean, I don't think any of us care to have the conversation to get into this because it's honestly silly. But in terms of the Super Bowl rematch, the Kansas City Chiefs going down 0-2, what are you guys' thoughts about kind of how things have played out for them so far? Obviously, since the Super Bowl, over the first 2 weeks, and kind of where things are for Kansas City at the moment.
I mean, it's kind of tough to judge them, especially like this last game and the game before. I mean, they're missing both of their top receivers. I mean, Xavier Worthy played how many snaps? Just a few before he got hurt. So, he didn't play the first game or he didn't play the second game. So I think that's a little bit overblown as far as what their offense looked like. I mean, he's throwing to random people outside of Travis Kelce, and as we all see, he has taken a step back in general. Defense, I think, still good. I mean, they played a decent game against the Chargers, but at the same time, as we see, this just might be Justin Herbert year. So, I mean, we'll see how that continues as far as he goes. But, I mean, their defense is still a solid defense. They still got players on that side of the ball. So, I understand the overreaction, but I just think that it's just a bad area for them to have one receiver suspended for the first 6 games, then the next receiver gets hurt. They say he might have played this past game. He practiced last week, so we'll see if he come back. But I don't think they're out of it as far as making the playoffs. I don't know about it, but I don't think they're out of it as far as making the playoffs.
I mean, I think it's a little concerning. I'm not gonna lie. Like going into the offseason, you knew that Rashee Rice going to training camp. You knew that Rashee Rice was going to miss time. You didn't necessarily know how much or
because
when.
A lot of people were acting like he wasn't going. It was a good chance he wasn't. It was a lot of people acting like he was. They knew he was
going to miss some time. They knew he was going to miss some time. They had to. But at the same time, you still set up your roster, set up your offense. If you're Andy Reid, who's supposed to, one best coach in the league right now, supposed to be, especially on offensive play caller. Your offense can't come out and look like this 2 weeks in a row. Where Patrick Mahomes is, again, I talked about this last week, again, you're a leading rusher. What are we doing? What are we doing? I understand you're playing good defenses. Don't get me wrong. I get it. The Chargers, Eagles, stout on defense. I get it. At the same time, you have to be more creative with how you implement your run. Your see Sean moving his head. How you implement your run offense. It's getting to the point where what is this going to look like throughout the season? Is Patrick Mahomes going to be your leading receiver every week with his little 50 to 60-yard games on little scrambles that just piss me off? But I definitely pissed the other teams off because it's like I don't understand how it keeps happening. But what does it look like going forward? You have these receivers. You brought back Juju. You brought back Hollywood Brown. You're taking shots to Thornton. Patrick's missing them. And these are big. If you connect on half of these throws that you're throwing throwing deep to Tyquan Thornton, the whole outlook of the game, it shifts. It looks totally different when you connect on deep balls like that. But he's straight up missing them. So it's like it's not a crisp operation right now, and I don't know. Like the schedule doesn't get much easier. I understand you're playing the Giants next week, but after that, it definitely doesn't get easy when you have Baltimore and so on and so forth. So I mean, it's a little concerning to me. We'll see how it goes. I'm not out on them, Chris, like you said, but at the same time, you're looking like, this is supposed to be the best offensive play calling league. It's supposed to be the best quarterback in the league. You can't keep looking mediocre, especially after how last season went. I don't care who you got at their receiver. You got to make it happen. These are guys you went into the offseason and you kept. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and I mean, obviously, given the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are 0-2 for the first time, and basically the Patrick Mahomes era, I mean, that's definitely cause for concern. I think that the fact that we've literally been saying, hey, the Chiefs haven't looked as good, even though their record is a little bit even though their record hasn't necessarily said the same thing in terms of how we felt. Because I mean, obviously, a couple years ago, I said that they were going to lose against the Dolphins in the playoffs. Last year, Cass might have been the only person that really was like, "Oh, Kansas City is going to be, a good team." And there's definitely clearly a decline in the overall talent of the team, and you saw the decline in Patrick as well in terms of his play. I don't, obviously he's come up clutch, in plenty of spots, and that's not to say that he's not a capable quarterback. He's not a top quarterback or anything, but there's been a clear decline where statistically he was always 1, 2, or 3. Now he's 19. 18 and 17, and it's looking more middle of the package. So I think that also causes some concern there. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a interesting case here with the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of what the rest of their outlook looks like for their team, because they do have a pretty tough schedule moving forward. And I don't know if things, even inserting some guys like Rashee Rice or Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice is still going to have to get into game shape. And I understand that he's probably going to hit the ground running, but what's to say that he doesn't have these ticky-tack injuries? Same thing. I mean, Xavier Worthy, you got hurt by your own player. So who's to say that something like that doesn't happen again?
That's so true.
Obviously, he's lighting the tail. So it's just it's a tough situation all around. And Cass kind of said, and I know he didn't mean it like that, but he said, you're playing the Giants this week as if it, just kind of like on a throwaway. But when you have Russ going for 450 and the defense looking like the defensive line still getting maybe they haven't necessarily been dominant, but they've definitely been getting sacks. They've definitely been getting to the quarterback. I'm not saying that they'll win. The Giants will win by any means necessary. We'll see when we get into our picks later. But it's still like, all right, it's not, you can't just walk into any game right now and be like, like before where you're like, all right, Kansas City's going to win this one. You can't walk into any game anymore being like that. And I think that they had an opportunity this past week against the Eagles to kind of, if they got a win, people would be like, all right, take a deep breath. Let's calm down a little bit. But with the Eagles not necessarily being like prolific offensively, and you still losing that way that you do in Arrowhead, it starts to, things start to get a little bit questionable. And I'm not going to say, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's over for them, because obviously it's only 2 weeks. And, one thing that I've heard personally a lot, or read personally a lot, is we all saw what the Saints did last year when they started off 0-2 or 2-0. Things can change pretty quickly. So I think there's definitely cause for concern with the Kansas City Chiefs and what the outlook of their team looks like moving forward. Once the schedule gets a little tougher after this week, if the Giants aren't what we think they are, or are who we think they are, we shall see with them.
Get interesting.
It will definitely get interesting, but I think that gives us a good segue into our hot seat watch. They might be a team that need to be on the hot seat watch as a whole. But obviously last week, we had some coaches, we had a full division players as well. But some people stepped up to the plate, others not necessarily. But who you guys got on the hot seat watch this week, and why?
Hey, speaking of step up to the plate, so yeah, I had the Giants last week. Russ and Brian Daboll, and that offense stepped up to the plate, like you said, Shot. It was towards the end of the game, but still though, Russ turning back the clock, throwing the moon balls. But Daboll, like I get it. You trying to kickstart some stuff, but like the in and out with Jackson Dart, like, hey, let's just not do that. Like that could have went detrimental for him. But they didn't come out with a W, but you could be happy about the progression as far as from week 1 to week 2. So good on them. Hopefully they, for their sake, they keep it up and whatnot. But for my hot seat, just for that reason, I was gonna put my offense on there, but I'm gonna give it one more week. Give it one more week. Why I say that, but
gotta show you something.
But I'm gonna put the Bears on there. Look, yes, the Lions are a tough team, but they are also your divisional opponent. You just lost to 2 divisional opponents. Tough way to start the season. You have an opportunity as far as Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, because the first game you start off good, then you just tailed off and disappeared, and then this last game, I don't know what to say about that. But you got an opportunity, because we just saw this same Dallas defense give up 450 in the air to Russell Wilson. Not saying that Russell Wilson's sorry, but we all had an idea, that he might be cooked. He came out there and turned back the clock. I want to see some firepower. I want to see the field light the fuck up. That's what I'm looking forward to see. As far as Ben Johnson being this, genius or just good play caller in general. But Caleb Williams, you was the number 1 overall pick. Like, okay, like show us something. So I'm gonna put that offense on the hot seat. I actually think it's a winnable game for them. But obviously they ain't one of our picks. But I'm gonna put that offense on the hot seat. So Ben Johnson, let's see what you got, man.
I think that's a very solid pick. It's a very solid pick. And okay, so last week I had the Houston offensive line, the Houston offense in period on my hot seat. And like you said, Shot, some of them didn't step up to the occasion, and they definitely didn't this game. I don't know what Houston got to do, but they better figure it out and fast. You're at 0-2. The Colts are looking like they want to take the division that you've been holding for the last couple of years. It's time to figure something out fast, and you have some divisional opponents coming up yourself, and you could just as easily lose to Jacksonville. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But this week, though, Chris, I got a question for you. Jacksonville Jaguars, Las Vegas Raiders, Chicago Bears. What do they all have? They picked what are supposed to be difference makers in the first 10 picks of the NFL draft. And you picked them, and now we're 2 weeks in. What's the plan? What is exactly the plan for them? We'll start with Jacksonville. And this is the fear I had, and that's why I said like earlier in the draft process, I think it's especially in this first season, it's easier for him to be full time on one side and Strickland on another. And I thought full time would be easier at cornerback, which we seen him get kind of, he get picked on a little bit, but that pass interference call, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that one, but it is what it is, right? I think it's easier to be full time on defense and Strickland on offense than it is the other way around. Because now you're in a position where he's halftime on both, or he's not even halftime on defense. So he's like he's playing what you could say 75% on offense, but only like 25% on defense. He's barely playing, and it's like, okay, what do we like? You're 2 games in now. You had all offseason to kind of figure out this plan or how you want to deploy this weapon that you traded up to get, and it doesn't look that good right now. So I'm real interested to see how the plan is going forward for that team. You look at the Raiders. We saw it on Monday night, man, and I know that it sometimes take a little minute, but at the same time, you drafted a running back at 6, you automatically you're like, okay, what the fuck is he going to do? What is your plan for him? And you don't even give him enough carries, and you come out and have Pete Carroll talking today about, we should get him 8 or 9 more carries, and that'll be good. So, okay, whoa. You're automatically talking about something that your offensive coordinator is not doing. He's putting in other running backs. Zamir White, he's damn near splitting time with him in this game. What's going on here? It's like this is supposed to be your focal point of offense outside of Brock, who is injured. So you're supposed to lean on Ashton Jeanty more in that case. And it just didn't look clean. I understand he had some pass blocking issues last on Monday night, and we'll kind of see how you can kind of correct that moving forward. But I'm looking at the Raiders and I'm like, okay. And then the same thing for the Bears. You drafted him at number 10. I'm assuming you had a plan for him, but then you go into games where he gets a couple of targets. You go into the game this week where he gets no targets. And it's like, okay, you look at what the Colts are doing with Tyler Warren, who was drafted 4 picks after him, and deploying him in a way that it exemplifies his skills. And
by
Ben
him,
Johnson,
he means Colston Loveland, just to have that in there.
Sorry, yeah. So yeah, I didn't even say that. The Bears drafted Colston drafted a tight end at 10 overall, above Tyler Warren, who's looking like the superior guy right now. Based on and he might be the superior guy, but you were also putting him in a better position as Shane Steichen and how you're using him in the offense. And the Bears clearly need somebody to step up in that offense. Now, you have a lot of options. So how are you going to use this number 10 pick that you could have used Ryan Poles on a different position to help your team right now, whether it be, at the defensive end spot, whether it be on the offensive line. So it's, we'll kind of see how but those are the 3 teams I'm watching, because you spend top 10, that's premium draft capital on these weapons that you're not using right so far. I know it's only week 2. I'm not freaking out, but I'm watching.
And I think with Jeanty, obviously, I mean, you alluded to it, but I do think that the carries kind of boil down to his pass blocking ability and trust.
Yeah.
I think we've seen the same thing in New England with Travion Henderson as well. And, we did see the debut of Quinshon Judkins this week, so we will see, kind of how it looks like for him. But, I mean, I think we kind of see across the board for at least the rookie running backs that it hasn't necessarily been, and, we saw Marion Hampton last night, probably going to lose some snaps next week, fumbling at the end of the game. Lost snaps for the rest of the game, too. So, it is a little tough, but I think that is at least a reason why. Last week on my hot seat, I had the entire AFC West division. I think that obviously it was tough for the Vegas Raiders and the Chargers because there had to be a loser there. But we all thought that Kansas City going down 0-2 was a strong possibility, and brought up the fact that there was a team there that could go up 2-0. The Broncos had an opportunity to do it against the Colts as well, and Shane Steichen tried to give them the game, and and they decided that they didn't want to take it. Coaching decisions should probably be on the hot seat watch, considering how both Sean Payton and Shane Steichen finished that game, and then some other coaching decisions around the league and what we've seen. But this week on my hot seat watch, I have Travis Kelce. He's been somebody that's kind of probably should have been on the hot seat watch a little bit earlier, and probably some last year. But the whole shtick with Travis Kelce, and I understand that some of the things have changed with Rashee Rice being hurt and Xavier Worthy, or Rashee Rice being suspended and Xavier Worthy being hurt, in terms of how he's supposed to be deployed. But, last year it was supposed to be, hey, Travis isn't doing anything throughout the season so that we can get in the playoffs and then he eats. That didn't happen. And we saw the game that he had against Philly. It was very, very, very lackluster in the Super Bowl. Last week, obviously, you hurt Xavier Worthy. Whether obviously it wasn't intentional, but that hurts your offense. And on top of the play itself, it is slipping a little bit, so that's hurting the offense as well. And then ultimately, we all, everybody wants to talk about the tush push, but we all know what the turn of the game was. And it was Travis Kelce dropping the pass and going right into Makuba's hands and him taking it for what should have been a pick six. But not only was, it the drop, but then you watch what it looked like after as well. And, there's been not a lot been talked about, like, Travis kind of like threw his hands up and, just kind of. And, actually, I'm going to also add not only Travis Kelce, but I'm going to also I'm just going to out the big three of the Chiefs, because not only is it Travis Kelce, the body language there, obviously we saw him, upset on the sidelines as well, and have seen probably a little bit more frustration than we've seen in the past over the past couple seasons. But now we've seen a lot of frustration from Chris Jones as well. He obviously argued with Drew Tranquill in the first game. Then game two, wasn't as, they haven't been able to get a pass rush over the first two weeks. And then we obviously the conversation with him and Jalen that went viral. I don't necessarily think that's a good look for a team that has gone to, as many Super Bowls as they've gone to, won 3 Super Bowls. And then obviously Patrick Mahomes, as we mentioned, the play has kind of slipped as well. So who's going to be the guy to kind of, you got 3 Hall of Famers. You guys are the ones. You guys are the ones when we talk about the Chiefs decades from now. We're going to be talking about you 3 and Andy Reid. And then, Tyreek Hill will have his own little spot, but it'll be probably a little brief. But you're the 3 that people are going to be talking about. Play has been slipping from all 3 of you guys. What is it? Who's going to be the one to step up? I think Travis Kelce, obviously I've been calling for your demise for the past couple seasons. Not necessarily demise, but retirement in the past couple seasons. And you shut me up personally, and I think that other people have probably said that they thought that you might retire as well. But it's looking like you probably should have. No disrespect. But Chris Jones, people haven't necessarily been saying that, but you did get a contract, a couple of years ago that spilled into the season. Obviously, you decided he wanted to take the hit and come back to the drawing board with the team. But, maybe that's why the team was a little hesitant on paying what they paid, even though he's obviously made, a couple plays in the playoffs that made that worthwhile. And then finally, Patrick Mahomes, obviously, the head of the snake. These missing deep balls, eventually they're, we've made jokes about it, but there does need to start having a conversation about, like, one of the things that everybody thought was your superpower was your ability to throw it deep. And it's looking like Tariq might have been that superpower. And maybe we need to put some more respect on Tariq Hill's name. So all 3 of the big 3 in Kansas City, they're on the hot seat watch. They'll be back on Sunday Night Football again this week. So we will see how things go for them. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into our game picks. What a week. What a week. Let's see what it was looking like last week, Cass, and we'll go ahead and get into the Thursday night game.
He's saying that because he had a perfect week, 6 out of 6 last week. Shout out to you.
It's when I should have put the parlay in too.
Yeah, honestly.
For real.
Chris, me and you both had 5 out of 6. Of course, you picked Houston over Tampa Bay. And then I picked Jacksonville over Cincinnati, which both of those games could have gone
Could have
either
went the
way.
other way.
So, so it is what it is. We were pretty much lockstep in all the rest of the games. So we'll see how it is this week. But total, I'm at 8. Shot is at 8, and Chris, you're at 9. Real close. Going in week 3.
Big comeback. With that being said, Thursday night game, a game that Cass hinted at last week could see some potential changes that will echo throughout the league. With Miami going against Buffalo, obviously Miami is down 0-2, Buffalo 2-0. Who you guys got this week and why?
Man, honestly, I do got Buffalo, but I really pray that Miami shows up. I really want this. I really want them to thrive. Like I really want them to do good for themselves. I mean, these past 2 weeks, I mean, it's just not even a team to put on the hot seat. You just picking on them at that point. It's just really been that bad for them. But I mean, honestly, I think Buffalo's going to win this game. I think they're going to win comfortably. I know it's a division game. I usually don't say that for divisional games, but Buffalo, they're going to put up them points on them. So I got Buffalo.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I love doing, when I had the time, usually when I'm at work or something, I go on YouTube and I go look at other fan reactions for other fan bases just to see how they feel about their teams and, just see, if I can see what they're seeing pretty much. So one place I went to was definitely Miami's kind of YouTube pages, Miami's fans result. And they kind of thinking the same thing that we are, honestly. A lot of them were like, once we get boat raced on Thursday night, Mike got to be out of there. And some people are expecting that because you have, of course, the Thursday night game, you had a little bit of time. And I think the week after that, you are at Monday Night Football. So you also like you go to a Thursday night football game to a Monday Night Football game. You have extra time on both sides. So, I do think Buffalo wins this game pretty handily. I think Miami has to make it a game, though. They can lose, but they have to make it a game to save their coach. And will they? I don't know. But if they get blown out 21 plus, I think Mike's out of there. I really do. That was a bad loss. We didn't talk about it too much. But that was a bad loss to the Patriots. And it came down to your quarterback, and it came down to late game execution, especially on that last drive where, he stepped A-Chain step out of bounds, on the touchdown that you thought you had. Sure, you come back. You still had time. You still had like a minute left, a timeout or two or whatever it was. And you get a false start. You had 12 people in the huddle. And you have to re-huddle, and then you get to delay a game, and you're just like you're shooting yourself in the foot. And that's Mike McDaniels. That's your offense. So that's a bad look. So we'll see how it is Thursday. But I think Buffalo wins this one.
Yeah, and I want to go back to last week because last week I did say pretty handily confident that I don't think Mike McDaniel is going to get fired in season. I want to come here and publicly say I disagree with that take so heavily, and not because I think it's my reasoning I don't disagree with, and I still stand on that. I think that it's more Tua than it is Mike McDaniel, and even to Cass's point, I think if we won't, the execution, while a lot of that is on the head coach, I do think that when you have a veteran quarterback, especially late game, something that I've mentioned plenty of times over the past 2 weeks is the Caleb article from Ty Dunn. And last year when we were talking about Eberflus and how things went with him, especially the late game blunder I think they had against the Lions, I was one that was like, nah, it's Caleb. I get he's the head coach, but at the end of the day, like you're the guy, you're the quarterback, you're on the field. There's nobody especially when you're the number one overall pick, especially when you're a franchise quarterback, whatever the case may be. There is nobody that has more say than the quarterback. Like we can just keep it a bean. There is nobody. If the quarterback wants to override some shit, they can. And I thought that was on Caleb. So same shit. I'm going to sit here and say that is on Tua, and I think Tua is going to end up getting his coach fired, which is going to spiral his own career. I think we've seen a very defeated Mike McDaniel in these press conferences. where it just, he's always been kind of a weird guy, in terms of some of the things he says. But this year it just seems like, maybe not weird is the best word, maybe a little bit quirky. This year it
Yeah.
seems like he's just like still quirky, but it's just like deflated. Like it's just like, all right, like yeah, you guys gonna ask me again. Whereas on the opposite side, Tua has been
Yep.
extremely combative with everything. It seems like it wasn't, even back to the point, and this is not something that we talk about or, really need to talk about or anything like that. But when Donald Trump requested Tua, Saquon was one of the athletes as well. I can't remember specifically what it was, but Donald Trump had requested Tua to come to the White House specifically to help out with some initiative or something like that. I can't specifically remember what it was, but a lot of people were kind of like, I mean, politically, you're looking at this locker room. It's probably not the best look for you. And he was pretty combative even back then. And it's kind of just continued spiraling to now where, he's been combative about people questioning whether or not he gets past his first or second read, which has always been a question about Tua. It's just some different things that he's been very combative about. And I think that the dam is about to break. And I think it starts with this Buffalo game. So if Mike McDaniel's going to get fired, I think it happens on Friday. And I think Buffalo wins in this one. So with that being said, we've got another rematch of a playoff game here. And one of the better playoff games from last season with the LA Rams going against the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles coming off of a win against a Super Bowl rematch, and the Rams beating what could possibly be the worst team in the league this year. Who you guys got and why?
I mean, I'm looking forward to this game, man. Like I said, we all seen it. Eagles offense is like shit, and I feel like they get away with a lot of stuff because the teams we playing can't score as much as they need to win the game. The Rams can put up some points. I mean, they got a good offense, good quarterback. It looking like the duo of Puka and Devontae Adams is meshing real good, and they got a decent running game. So it's a team that's gonna be able to come in and put up points. I am looking to see how offense is. And it just seems like even with the past two games, like, we were only doing good in the first half because Dallas kept scoring, so offense had no choice but to score. And then once both teams, just got stagnant, and same thing with the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs threatened to score, then here the offense go, but it just come and go too much. It doesn't look good, but I think these next two games are our tougher games, and I feel like we will probably lose one of them, and I think it's gonna be the other one. So I'm picking the Eagles with this one because we home. So I'm gonna pick them. But like I said, for me, whether we win or lose, I'm really interested to see how offense responds.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I'm going to go with the Rams on this one. But it's very close, but kind of the same reason you talked about, Chris. Like the offense has to show me something. You have all the stats, all the charts coming out about like how you're not using your receivers. How does that really look? Are you really putting that much pressure, on the defense? Now, could Saquon look? I know he had the best first two games. After last season, I still, especially against this team, he could dominate this game. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, I think he will have to score points to keep up with this offense. I'm interested to see if he can, but I'm gonna go with the Rams in this one.
This is a tough game.
It is
obviously because of how Philadelphia's offense has performed over the past 2 weeks, and then the Rams, as I mentioned, we don't necessarily know how good Houston is going to be or is just in general. We know the D-line is good, but, everything else looks a little shaky. And Philadelphia, I mean, as I said, when we did our top 10s, I would never, because he's got a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP, especially how he's performed in the two Super Bowls. I would never knock somebody for having Jalen Hurts in their top 5, top 6, whatever the case may be. But eventually there has to come a time where we stop with he's just okay with, not having the stats. And obviously this is things that we talked about last season plenty of times. And, for the most part, he didn't necessarily always put up those numbers, but it seemed like every time somebody questioned him, they did. I think it has to show. Eventually it has to show. It cannot, that type of style can't continue for them if they expect to continue to be as dominant as they've been, especially with Jalen Hurts, the fully healthy seasons. I'm not going to count the funk season, whatever the hell they had going on then. But I'm going to give this the last week.
Supernatural.
And I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one, mostly because I don't think the Rams, with Witherspoon getting hurt this past week as one of their top or their starting corners, I don't know if they've necessarily fixed that D-line in terms of the run defense, where the Eagles found so much success in both games that they played against them. So I'm not thinking that the passing offense will necessarily need to be great, but some of it had to do with the snow and the ice and slush and everything that was going on in that playoff game. But that was one game that, it was very alarming how the passing offense played. So I think this is a game that they really need. And I think that this is a game that they have at least a good showing, whether it be AJ or Devontae. But I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one in a close game that comes down to the wire. So with that being said, getting into this next one, and this one could be a snoozer or it could be a really good one. But the Vegas Raiders going against the Washington Commanders. As of right now, it seems like Jaden Daniels might be out for this game, but based on everything that they're saying is that there's still a possibility that he could play. We'll obviously learn more as we start to get into practice actually going on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But we just watched Vegas kind of have a rough showing against the Chargers. Who you guys got and why?
This is an interesting one. Like you said, Jada, if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. I don't want to see him trying to run around not 100%. Max Crosby on the other side. That don't bode well for that boy. But I think Gino will have a bounce back game. Not saying he's gonna go crazy, but I think he's gonna show us a little more than what this past game. It was a bad game by him. He came out, he owned it. But I think Washington will. I think the Vegas Raiders are gonna win this game. I think Washington again shows us the aspect of them being a little older than. Basically being the oldest team in the league, and I think some of that stuff catch up with them, and I think the Raiders will get this dub. I also think that Ashton Genty will have his first 100-yard
game. Hope so. They are on my hot seat for that. And for that reason, I think I got the Raiders in this one as well. Like you said, Chris, that's the oldest team in the league. I mean, we didn't talk about it, but Austin Eckler is out for the season with a torn Achilles. That's very tough, especially after you traded Brian Robinson Jr. Right before the season started. Of course, you do got Bill. So they'll definitely lean on him a lot, especially if Jaden doesn't play. But is he ready for that? Who knows? And, we'll kind of see how it goes. But I got the Raiders in this one. I think they kind of pull it out. They get the kind of bad taste out of their mouth. I'm still trusting Pete Carroll to lead this team to bounce back from a loss like that. Where honestly, I know the score was 20-9. It could have been like you didn't play as bad. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you got blown out. You still realistically you had a chance to win it in the fourth quarter. You just could not get your offense out the mud. So I do think they bounced back from it. I think that defense did show me something on Monday night. Where they were able to hold. I know Justin Herbert still had his spots, but at the same time, you saw when they needed a turnover, they got a turnover. When they needed a big stop on special teams, they got that. So I got the Raiders in this one.
Yeah, and I also have the Raiders in this one simply because I don't know what Jaden McDaniels. we got Jamie McDaniels, but I don't know. I don't know what Jaden Daniels is going to look like, whether he's healthy or not. And like Cass mentioned, actually, I do agree that the defense has looked really good. And, uh, both teams probably are coming off of a game where they played against the top two defenses in the league because, you know, uh, we'll get into Detroit a little bit later, but for them to put on the show that they did after people were had a lot of questions about their offense going against the Packers, and that Packers defense might be something serious, and then the Chargers defense as
Might
well.
be.
Obviously, the Chargers defense was great last year, and they don't necessarily have they have Khalil Mack, and even when he left, they were still getting a ton of pressure on Vegas last night, and some of that probably has to do with their offensive line, but for that, I think that Chargers defense just might be stout. So I do think that they release the reins a little bit going against a defense that's not as good. And I think Vegas and Gino have a big bounce back and are able to pull this one out. But it's a weird game because last year when Marcus Mariota came in, I mean, they didn't necessarily miss a beat. So and offensively, even though the offense hasn't been good at all really this season, so maybe the veteran can kind of come in and give him a little bit of a boost. So we'll see. But getting into the next game, another divisional game, and the first 2 weeks, I feel like we've had a lot of divisional games, and maybe not more than usual, but it feels like it's more than usual. But
It's funny you said
Denver.
that. It's funny you said that because I was watching football with La, and she said that she's like, "Do they normally have division games like in the first week like that?" And I was like, "You know what? I don't think so." Because it was
it's
lot.
been a lot. I mean, week 1 was basically like damn near all divisional, which maybe there's an element of that that's pretty cool, but maybe they should probably start enforcing playing in the preseason if we're going to do that. Start the year off with week 1 divisional games, in the season with week 18 divisional games, but we'll see. But getting into two more teams that I had on my hot seat last week, obviously Denver versus the Los Angeles Chargers. We got a little bit into the Raiders obviously just now, but Chargers coming off of a huge win, and Denver coming off of a disappointing loss. Who you guys got and why?
I mean, like you just said, I mean, another divisional game. This is 3 in a row for the Chargers. I'm pretty sure I've never seen that. This is 3 in a row for them. This is the opportunity for them to, put their foot down. Like, hey, we up 3-0 in the division. Most people say division game counts as 2 when you think about it. But for that reason, I got the Chargers. I think it's gonna be a good game. Denver defense actually have a good defense. Maybe not, but I still think their defense is good. The Chargers defense is pretty good, but I just think at the end of the day, Justin Herbert going to make more plays than Bo Nix, and I got the Chargers winning another divisional game, up 3-0 in the division.
I think it boils down to just the last thing you said. I think Justin Herbert will make more plays than Bo Nix. I got the Chargers in their home. This is a very tough game for Denver. Especially coming off the loss that they had. I know they're pretty mad about that. Especially the penalty that they had on special teams that allowed them to get that 15 yards and kill. I know they're a little salty about that, but this is not the team that you want to kind of bounce back and see at the same time. Like this defense and your offense hasn't looked that good. So when you're going against this Chargers defense, like Shah just said, this is a stout group. I'm interested to see how Bo Nix plays against it. But yeah, I think the Chargers will give them and will have a little bit more for them. So Chargers.
Yeah, I'm also going with the Chargers in this one. As I mentioned on my hot seat last week, with Kansas City going down 0-2, you'd want to see a team kind of take advantage of that and really kind of exert divisional dominance, and being up 3-0 in a division I think will be huge, as well as I think Jim Harbaugh is an excellent coach, and I think that's remained true in his first stint, his college time, and now in his second stint.
It's crazy how good he is, honestly.
Yeah.
So
and
quickly.
and Jesse Minter as well. They were raving about him a lot on the last night on Monday Night Football, but I do think that he needs to be mentioned, just the job he's done with the defensive side, especially given that they don't necessarily have a name on the cornerback side. They don't have a name in the middle of a guy that I had in my top 10 of linebackers, but, and Dion Henley had a great game last night, wasn't even supposed to play. but that's not necessarily a household name. And then on the D line, outside of Khalil Mack, who ended up getting hurt last night, definitely don't have with Joey Bosa being gone, they don't have a necessarily a household name as well. So for them to still be, top 2-3 this year, and then last year they were top 2-3 as well. I think he deserves a big shout out. But also Denver, you probably got one of the better Bo Nix games that you'll ever get last week against Indianapolis. And then, defensively, I don't necessarily think that they have to worry too much, just because I think Shane Steichen is just in his bag right now. We'll see how long that lasts for the Colts, but you got the best game that you could. I don't want to say the best game that you could possibly get out of Bo, but one of the best games that you could possibly get out of Bo Nix, and it still resulted in a loss. I think that's very tough. So, I'm going with the Chargers in this one, and people will probably start having conversations about Denver being a bit of a disappointment. Which, should we start having conversations about Denver being a disappointment, or is Indianapolis just a better team than people expected? I mean, people wanted to say both Denver and the Dolphins are trash after that, so it's neither here nor there. But that's neither here nor there. But it's probably a little bit of both. But getting into our Sunday night game, Kansas City versus the New York Giants. Two teams that really need a win.
Really need one.
So this is going to be a very desperate game on both sides, in my opinion. Who you guys got and why?
Yeah, desperate on both fronts. From the Chiefs' perspective, you've never been 0-3 in the Patrick Mahomes era, obviously. And you have a lot of people questioning who y'all are as a team. And, for the Giants, you got people on the other side fighting for their livelihood, fighting for their jobs, in my opinion. But I think Kansas City going to etch out this victory. I think with the questions we ain't talk about this, but that boy Hudson getting benched off rip for the Giants, bad look. Their offensive line is terrible. And we know Spagnuolo, we seen it last game. And, obviously it's game plan specific, but he was throwing a hella zero cover zero blitzes and everything. So, that's his calling card. He like the blitz. And with that bad offensive line, I can see them getting to Russ quickly. Russ trying to throw that moon ball and throwing a dirt ball or something. I think that ends up being the difference in the game. Just like many other games, turnovers. I think that's going to end up being the difference, and I think Kansas City going to pull this one out.
Yeah, you're hoping if you're, the Giants, you're hoping that you can get Andrew Thomas back. I know he practiced last week. I think I don't know if he was limited or full. I want to say I read that he was full practice one of those days. Maybe I might be tripping, but hopefully he's close to coming back. That'll definitely be a help for them. But I also got to go Kansas City, and I kind of brought up in our group chat. I brought it up a little earlier. Kansas City could lose this game. I'm not gonna lie. They don't look the best. But I can't just pick against them in a game like this. But like you said, both teams need it, so we'll see how hard Giants fight for it. If the Giants start this season 0-3 and they got the Chargers next week, where do you go? Because it's not like you're playing bad in these games, but at the same time, it's like you got to produce wins at some point. It'll lead to a lot of questions, so we'll kind of see how that is over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's just a very interesting game just across the board because, last week I know, and obviously I mentioned earlier that the Giants fireworks kind of happened in the fourth quarter, but they were also, kind of handling the game for the most part until, the floodgates kind of opened. And then similar with, they weren't handling the game in terms of like they were the dominant team against Washington the first week, but
it didn't really get out of hand or nothing like
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
and Washington was still having their struggles there. So this is two of the worst defenses in the league right now, and surprisingly, well, probably not surprisingly given the boom that they had last week, but the Giants are the better offense right now. So I'm going to go with the Giants. I'm going to go with the Giants to send Kansas City to 0-3. A guy that I thought about having on my hot seat watch was Abdul Carter. Not to say that he's been playing all right, but you were drafted to also be a difference maker for the team, not just a difference maker on the D line. So here's your opportunity. You're on Sunday Night Football, in a game against a three-time NFL champion, a team that's reeling at this point, a team that their offensive line, the left tackle's playing well, but the right tackle's having a little bit of struggles. You have an opportunity to get after Patrick Mahomes and Malik Neighbors. Huge game last week, and really, not to say that he needed a game to kind of arrive in the NFL, but I think it was one of those games where you're like, all right, we want to talk about top 5, top 3, top 4. Like that's
He's
one
there.
of those games that you have from one of those receivers, and right now, I know that a few years ago when why is his name escaping me, L'Jarius Sneed got the Chiefs let him go. It was supposed to be all about Trent McDuffie. Well, I've been seeing Trent McDuffie get cooked a lot over the past couple seasons. Not to say that he's been bad by any means, but a couple seasons ago it was lockdown Trent. Now it's like, he can get got. We obviously saw one of the biggest plays of the game last week was a play, an underthrown ball by Jalen Hurts that Trent McDuffie was the guy defending there. So I think Malik Neighbors gets off in this game, and Russ has one of his last few signature wins prior to him being replaced whenever that time comes, unfortunately. So and I think we go into another week of questions for Kansas City. So last game of the week, hopefully the best game of the week, but given some of the history we've seen between these two teams, I am not 100% sure. Detroit versus Baltimore. Monday Night Football, two of the most dominant teams over the past couple seasons that can't get over the hump. Who you guys got and why?
I mean, like you said, Shy, the past games against for these two was a little one-sided. I mean, they both got some prolific offense when they get going. As we just seen, Detroit putting up all them points last week, and we seen the Ravens could obviously put up points themselves. So this is going to come down to who can make a stop. I think if I had to go with my gut feeling at this juncture of time, it had to be the Ravens. I think that they're just it's just something about some teams you just got to one up on the team, and I just think that at this point, like we already know the stat with Lamar, he usually doesn't lose to the NFC teams, and so. With that being said, I'm gonna go with the Ravens on this one. I think it's still gonna be a close game. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout like last time, but I still think the Ravens just gonna make more plays at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. I'm not picking against Lamar against the NFC team. I just can't. So, Baltimore. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll make it 3 for 3. I'm also gonna go with Baltimore here. Not much to talk too much about them last week. Obviously, they were going against the Browns that not a lot of people thought were going to be that good, but putting up a 40 burger in back-to-back games against obviously a big rival with the Buffalo Bills, even though they lost that game, but then your division rival who also kind of gives you fits and still has a good defense. They carved them up pretty well. I also think that, not to be distasteful in any way, but Baltimore look and they're like, oh, Joe Burrow, who we really didn't even think was very much competition, but that was supposed to be our toughest competition for this division. We can go ahead and start running away with this one. So I think that they get a dominant win on Monday Night Football, and they got a big other rival coming to town the week following. So I think that leads into a lot of questions going into next week's game. And we'll get into that as well next week as well. So, but I got the Ravens winning this one, and I also think that they are going to dominate this one. So I think that they win And I don't know what to call a blowout in the NFL. Is it 2 touchdowns? Is it 3 touchdowns? But I think that they win pretty handily in a 2 touchdown.
Yeah, I agree with
Not shy saying the Chiefs going forward.
Hey,
I mean,
hey.
hey.
It could get very interesting, my
It
man.
could,
Hey,
you know.
I mean, you know.
When it rains, it pours, and when your whole philosophy is Patrick is so good, which it's never necessarily been the case. No disrespect to Patrick, but it's never been that he was this just great player that he has, that no matter who he puts on his team, like he's going to be good. That was never the case. Like it's never been the case. I know people want to be like, look at these receivers that aren't doing anything now. You know, it is 3-4 years later. You know, so falling. I was gonna say earlier, you know, where people fall too much in love with the idea as opposed to the reality. You know, in response to what Cass mentioned about Travis Hunter, but you know, we've seen it a lot. You know, falling in love with traits of quarterbacks in terms of young guys and expecting them to excel as opposed to what they look like mentally. Falling in love with the possibility that a guy can play 2 sides of the ball as opposed to specializing in one side and then developing, because I mean they're acting like Travis is like, I understand that there are times that you deploy players a certain way in certain matchups, but Travis hasn't established himself in any type of way, form, or fashion. He hasn't established himself as a receiver. He hasn't established himself as a cornerback. So trying to deploy him like specialty usage, we're going to put him on Jamar Chase. Yeah, and then, falling in love with, similar to Patrick Mahomes, but, the Bills might be, staring that down in the next couple of years as well, where you just kind of keep letting the talent leave out, and you're expecting your quarterback to just continue to take you to a place that,
all hell, Josh Allen.
See, exactly. So like, it's probably something that's always been the case, but there might need to be some sweeping changes in terms of how people view and look at the NFL and in development and stuff like that. And I think that Kansas City might be in for a rude awakening. So, especially given how these first 2 weeks are going. So maybe maybe they won't be 0-4. Maybe they'll put it together, but I'm not gonna bank on it.
Maybe.
I'm not gonna bank on it.
Just maybe.
With that being said, that gives us a wrap for another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast. We will catch y'all next week.
Yes, sir.